What's going on, everyone? Today's video is about starting. It's the hardest step. It's the hardest part of doing anything, is just getting started and taking that one step. It's cliche. There's so many different cliches about this. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Beginning is the hardest part. I mean, it's just so old that this dude named Newton had a rule, and it was number one. It was number one on the charts. Let me read it for you. An object that is sleeping in bed doesn't want to get out of bed unless acted upon. That's momentum. That's Newton's first law of motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. It's the same thing with us and motivation. Getting that first push and getting moving is the hardest part. And every time we put a little bit more force, momentum carries us and we get faster and faster and we achieve things. So let's analyze doing things. And instead of using an analogy for getting started, using physics to describe psychology, let's analyze doing things. Vsauce, Kyle here. There's 3 parts of doing something. You need to make a commitment. You need to find motivation, and you have to have the courage to act upon it. So the first part, commitment. In order to achieve something or start work on something, you have to have an idea of where you're going to end up, or at least you have to know a direction you're going to go. You need to point yourself in the right direction to make the first move. If you're trying to walk to the ice cream stand and you point yourself in the wrong direction, you're not gonna go the right way. It's obvious, right? That's the first step of doing anything. You have to make a decision on where you're going to go. You have to commit to doing that. Commitment is the first piece of the puzzle, and part of the reason why it's hard to get started, because as I always say, you know how flawed you are and how many times you've let yourself down and all the mistakes you've made. It drags you down. How can you trust yourself to honor that commitment you made when you decided to do something? Okay, but despite what you think about yourself, and despite how many times you've failed yourself in the past, or how little, and it doesn't take much to commit to going and doing this thing. I'm gonna stop saying this thing. Let's use the scenario of asking somebody out. Everybody does it from time to time at some point in their life, and it's stressful. So we're gonna start using asking somebody out. You've done it before, or you haven't. But if you've done it before, you know how it goes, and maybe it didn't go very well, so it's hard to commit to doing it because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust that things are going to work out. In the case of asking somebody out, making the commitment to go in the right direction, when you're presented with the opportunity, you don't turn around and walk away. I'm sorry that I even looked at you. I don't have a crush on you. No, instead, you make a commitment to move in the right direction. That is the first step. The second step is motivation. What is driving you to do this? Now, you have 2 choices for this step, and it depends on how you motivate yourself and how you are motivated to do things. You can A, stake your entire self-image, your self-esteem, your confidence, your ego, everything. You can stake all of it. You're all in on this one thing. If it goes wrong, you are just absolutely destroyed as a person and you will never recover again. Or it's just not that big a deal. If it goes wrong, you learn from it, you move on, And if it goes right, then great, you had a success, you can feel good about yourself. Neither of them are worse or better than the other. It's just a rationalization to find the motivation to do it. You're looking in deep and figuring out why you're doing this and what you have to tell yourself and how you change the scenario and your perspective on the scenario to better motivate yourself. For me, it's kind of a mix of the two. When I really need to find motivation to do something, I stake my own identity, my own view of myself on it. And I say to myself, if you don't go and do this, I will hate you. But sometimes it's just not that big a deal, right? Saying hi to someone, smiling at someone on the street, you make a commitment, you motivate yourself by saying, I'm just gonna do it. And if it goes wrong, whatever, it's just a random person, doesn't matter. Or if it goes right, hey, you made either of your day better, it doesn't matter. So it's a mix of two for me. But sometimes you might have to do scenario A and scenario B sometimes, or exclusively one of the two. But those are your choices for motivation. So we have commitment and motivation. The last thing is having the courage to act. Having the courage to take that first step. You've committed to doing it. You've pointed yourself in the right direction. You found the motivation, the why, the driving force of making that decision and taking that first step. Now you need to find the courage. And way back when I was watching YouTube as a wee little lad, it was probably 2008, 2009, maybe 2010. It was a big time for Call of Duty commentaries, and I followed a guy named Woody's Gamertag. He wasn't like a lot of the other commentators that were guys my age at the time, and we're just talking over gameplay. Woody was older, maybe mid-30s. He had a family, he had 2 kids, and he had a certain level of wisdom that a lot of the other YouTubers didn't have. And he had this video series called Mail Monday where he took questions from his followers and he answered them in a weekly video. You guessed it, on Monday. One of the big takeaways after all those years from one of his videos is it just takes a moment of courage. It takes a millisecond of courage. In the scenario of asking somebody out, maybe you've thought about your crush for 3 weeks, you've been wanting to ask them out for so long, or it's been a year or 2 years, and that stress and anxiety and build up, it's just been building up and building up all the way to the point of you asking them out. It's like building a mountain of stress and anxiety and anticipation, and it keeps building to this massive mountain peak, and up to the very tippy top is where you actually ask them out. And it only takes a millisecond of courage to reach that peak and go down the other side. Because once you cross that line, once you take that first step into doing something, whether it's learning to run a marathon or asking your crush out or starting on a big project or meeting new people, it takes a millisecond of courage. And once you're past that one point, you have momentum. You're committed to it. You've been motivated to do it. You're committed and you're stuck in this outcome. You have to ride it out and you don't really have a choice. I mean, you could go, hey, you want to go out? And then literally run away. You could do that, but that's a little bit weird. So no matter how you ask someone out, it's not going to be weirder than just running away immediately. You're committed. It just takes that millisecond of courage. It's actually quite magical. If you've never thought about doing things and taking that first step in this perspective, next time that happens, recognize the little moment of courage that it takes. Literally just a second, right? Maybe sometimes it's 3-4 seconds. It doesn't matter. Once you get past it, once you take that first step, you have momentum. Going back to Newton's first law, it's the second part of it. An object in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted on by another force. The same goes for when you take that first step. You're moving forward. You have to force yourself to stop in order to go back on what you have committed to. And once you get moving, the crazy thing is, if you don't do anything, if you're neutral, you'll continue moving forward. You'll keep progressing. You'll keep moving towards that target that you committed to moving towards. And then if you work a little bit harder, you're gonna build momentum. You're gonna accelerate and get better faster, and you're gonna continue to improve. So you've covered all the bases. You've committed to doing the thing. You have motivation as to why you're doing the thing, and you've garnered enough courage for you to act on it. Now you're moving, and that's why it's so hard to begin. If you don't follow my channel, something that I took the first step in a few weeks ago was my journey and training program to ultimately running a marathon come next fall with my friend Paige. And the first hardest, most difficult step was that first run. If you saw that video, we were absolutely bent out of shape from that first little run. And no matter how many times we're gonna go out and run and train and push ourselves, it's not gonna be nearly as difficult as that first run and getting started and making that commitment to running the marathon next year. Finding the motivation and the why and the courage to go on this journey and work towards this goal together. I can't think of a better example as of recent in my life to illustrate that fact that starting and taking that first step is always gonna be the hardest part. And after that, it's just smooth sailing, baby. You're gonna do this. You can ask that person out. You can finish that project. You can get the A in that class. You can accomplish anything if you recognize the 3 factors that it takes to taking that first step and overcoming them. You'll achieve all your dreams ever. I can't promise that, but I believe in all of you. If you're new to the channel, I do a few of these videos. Just a few of them are just talking to the camera, but I also do travel videos. If you missed that video about our marathon training, I laid out the entire plan, what runs we're gonna do, our training plan, the 5K, the 10K, all of that stuff. I'll link that in the description. You can also click right up here to watch that video and leave a comment down below, something that you committed to recently, whether it's just waking up earlier or producing an album. You amazing SoundCloud prodigy. Leave that comment down below, and thank you as usual so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.